My husband used my broken legs as an excuse to cheat with his ex, saying, "You're completely worthless right now. Every part of you is broken and useless. You can't even satisfy me anymore." So, I made sure those words cost him everything. You're completely worthless right now. Every part of you is broken and useless. You can't even satisfy me anymore. My husband Carter said those words to me while I sat in a wheelchair with both legs shattered, and his ex-girlfriend Vanessa stood in our living room with her arm around his waist. They'd walked into our apartment together at 10 p.m. like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I was just furniture they had to navigate around. I was 31 years old. Married 7 years. 8 weeks into recovering from a car accident that had pulverized both my femurs. And this was the moment I learned my marriage certificate had been written in disappearing ink. But here's what Carter didn't know. I was recording everything. And I was about to make sure those words cost him absolutely everything. Let me back up to the day my life shattered, literally and figuratively. It was a Saturday in early March. One of those perfect spring afternoons where the air smells clean and the sun hits just right through the car windows. I was sitting in the passenger seat of our SUV, scrolling through photos on my phone from my sister Emma's baby shower. Tiny onesies decorated with elephants. Pastel pink cake with buttercream flowers. Emma's glowing face as she opened gift after gift, her hands resting on her 7-month belly. Carter was driving, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on my knee, this little unconscious gesture he always did. Some old Fleetwood Mac song was playing on the radio and he was humming along, slightly off-key, making me smile despite myself. We'd been married 7 years. The kind of marriage people write about in anniversary cards. We still held hands in movie theaters. Still left ridiculous notes on the bathroom mirror. That morning he'd written "You're beautiful even with toothpaste foam beard," in blue dry erase marker. I'd drawn a heart and added "You're tolerable even before coffee." Stupid little things that felt like love. My graphic design freelance business was thriving. I'd just signed 2 new corporate clients the week before. A tech startup needing a full rebrand and a local restaurant chain wanting menu designs. I was making more money than I'd ever thought possible working from our cozy 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood with good coffee shops and a Sunday farmer's market. Life felt stable. Normal. Safe in that way you never really appreciate until it's gone. I remember thinking, scrolling through those baby shower photos, that maybe Carter and I should start thinking about kids soon. We'd always said, eventually, but eventually was starting to feel like now. Emma looked so happy. So complete. I was about to text her one of the photos when I saw the headlights. Wrong lane. Coming straight at us. Too fast. Carter screamed my name, "Siu," and jerked the wheel hard to the right. I looked up from my phone just as the dark sedan slammed into the passenger side. The police report would later say the driver was a 17-year-old kid who'd been texting. Going approximately 65 miles per hour in a 35 zone. The sound was like the world ending. Metal screaming. Glass exploding in a million directions. My phone flew out of my hand and disappeared somewhere in the chaos. The impact threw me sideways against the seatbelt so violently I thought my ribs would cave in. Pain. Immediate and everywhere. Specifically my legs. Oh God, my legs. Everything went white. Then red. Then black. I don't remember the ambulance. Don't remember the paramedics cutting me out of the wreckage. Don't remember the emergency room or the first surgery or the second one 12 hours later when they realized the damage was worse than initially thought. I woke up 3 days later. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and something underneath it. Fear maybe, or despair. The kind that lives permanently in medical facilities. My mouth was so dry my tongue felt like sandpaper. My whole body felt wrong, disconnected, like I was wearing someone else's skin. My mother was sitting in a chair by the window, crying quietly into a shredded tissue. She looked older than I remembered. Lines around her eyes I'd never noticed before. My legs were elevated, wrapped in bandages and surrounded by metal hardware that looked like it belonged in a construction site instead of a hospital. Rods. Pins. Screws. Holding me together. Carter was sitting next to my bed holding my hand. His face was drawn, unshaven, eyes red-rimmed. When I made a sound, not quite a word, just a noise, his whole expression transformed. "Chloe," he breathed, squeezing my hand. "Oh God, you're awake. You're finally awake." Relief flooded through me. He was here. He'd stayed. Whatever had happened, we'd face it together. Dr. Mitchell came in about 20 minutes later. She was 50-ish, calm, competent, with short gray hair and that carefully practiced sympathy face doctors perfect in medical school. She pulled up a chair and explained the damage in measured tones designed not to panic me. The impact caused catastrophic bilateral fractures to both femurs, she said, showing me X-ray images on a tablet. My legs looked like shattered ceramic, pieces everywhere held together by metal rods. Extensive soft tissue damage. Significant nerve involvement. We've stabilized the fractures with intramedullary rods and plates, but you're looking at 6 to 8 months of recovery. Possibly longer. How much longer? My voice came out hoarse, unfamiliar. She paused. Never a good sign. Some patients regain near full mobility, she said carefully. Others experience permanent limitations. We won't know your specific outcome until we see how you progress through physical therapy. The room went silent. My mother made a small choking sound. I stared at the X-rays at the shattered bones that used to be my legs, trying to process the words. Might walk normally again. Might not. Might need a cane forever. Might never be the same. Carter squeezed my hand tighter. Looked at Dr. Mitchell with fierce determination. Whatever she needs, he said firmly. We'll handle it together. Physical therapy, home care, modifications to the apartment, whatever it takes. She's not doing this alone. My mother looked relieved. Started crying harder but happier tears. Carter's parents arrived an hour later. His father, stern and practical in his usual way, assessed the situation quickly. His mother, emotional but trying to hide it behind forced optimism, kept patting my arm and saying everything would be fine. They praised Carter. Over and over. You raised a good man, my dad told Carter's father in the hallway. I heard it through the open door. Standing by her like this. Not every husband would. He knows what marriage means, Carter's father replied, voice gruff with approval. I believed them. Believed in the hand holding mine. Believed in the determination in Carter's voice when he promised we'd handle this together. Believed that 7 years of marriage meant something when everything else fell apart. That was my first mistake. 3 weeks later they discharged me. Both legs in heavy casts from hip to ankle. A wheelchair had been delivered to our apartment the day before. Carter had spent the previous week rearranging furniture to create pathways wide enough for the chair. He'd moved our bedroom setup to the living room since I couldn't navigate the stairs to our actual bedroom. Bought a shower chair. Installed grab bars in the bathroom. When both sets of parents helped get me settled that first day home, Carter was attentive. He adjusted pillows behind my back without being asked. Brought me water before I requested it. Checked every 10 minutes if I was comfortable, if I needed pain medication, if anything hurt. His mother actually teared up watching him. You're so lucky, she whispered while Carter was in the kitchen with the others. Not every man would handle this so well. You raised him right, my dad said, clapping Carter on the shoulder as they prepared to leave. Taking care of her like this. That's what marriage is about. Everyone left around 7. My dad was the last one out the door, giving Carter one final approving nod. The second the lock clicked, everything changed. Carter stood in the entryway for a moment, his back to me. Then he turned around and the concerned, devoted husband expression was just gone. Replaced by something flat. Hard. Almost resentful. I'm going out, he announced. Not asking. Just informing. I blinked at him, confused by the sudden shift. Oh. Could you maybe help me get settled in bed first? It's been a really long day. He sighed. Heavy. Theatrical. The kind of sigh you make when someone asks you to donate a kidney. Jesus, Chloe, he muttered. Fine. That sigh became the soundtrack of my new reality. Every single task, helping me to the bathroom, preparing meals, adjusting my position in the wheelchair, came with that same heavy sigh and eye roll. This thick aura of resentment that made the air in our apartment feel toxic. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was a broken thing he was stuck with. The first 2 weeks home blurred together. Pain medication fog. Physical therapy appointments Carter drove me to in complete silence. Long stretches of being alone while he claimed to be working late or having networking dinners or meeting the guys for drinks. Every time I needed help, showering, getting dressed, moving from wheelchair to bed, he'd do it but with visible frustration. Eye rolls. Heavy sighs. Body language that screamed this was a burden he resented carrying. I started asking for less. skipped meals because I didn't want to bother him, waited hours to use the bathroom until I absolutely couldn't hold it anymore, tried to do things myself and failed, then cried silently in the dark while Carter slept with his back turned. My best friend Jenna noticed during one of her visits. I'd lost weight, had dark circles under my eyes that had nothing to do with pain and everything to do with stress. "Chloe, are you okay?" she asked carefully while helping me wash my hair in the kitchen sink. "Beyond the obvious, I mean. Something feels off." "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just adjusting." Another mistake in a growing list of them. Because I wasn't fine. And Carter wasn't the man I'd married. I just didn't know how bad it would get yet. Jenna showed up the next afternoon without calling first. She had a bag of takeout from my favorite Thai place and that determined expression she got when she knew something was wrong and wasn't leaving until she fixed it. "Lunch," she announced, letting herself in with the spare key I'd given her weeks ago. "And before you say you're not hungry, I got the pad thai with extra peanuts so you're eating." I was in my wheelchair by the window staring at nothing in particular. Carter had left at 8 that morning without saying where he was going. It was now past 1 and I hadn't heard from him. Jenna set the food down on the coffee table and pulled up a chair across from me. She studied my face for a long moment before speaking. "When's the last time Carter actually helped you with anything?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "He helps." "Does he?" She gestured around the living room. "Because I've been coming here almost every day for 3 weeks and I've yet to see him do a single thing. I'm the one helping you shower. I'm the one bringing food. I'm the one doing your physical therapy exercises with you." "He's been working a lot," I said automatically, defensively. "Extra hours to cover the medical bills. This situation is hard on him too." Jenna's expression shifted from concern to something harder. "I agree. Chloe. You're the one with shattered legs and you're sitting here making excuses for him." I looked away, unable to meet her eyes. She leaned forward. "When did he start wearing cologne?" "Because I've known Carter 7 years and that man has never worn cologne in his life." "I don't know. Recently, I guess." "And his phone," she pressed. "Have you noticed it's always face down? That he takes it everywhere, even to the bathroom? That he practically jumps out of his skin if you get near it?" I had noticed. I'd been trying not to notice. "He started dressing differently too," Jenna continued, voice gentler now but no less firm. "New shirts. Designer jeans. Going to the gym suddenly even though he's never been into fitness." "Chloe, these aren't signs of a stressed husband working extra hours." "Then what are they signs of?" I asked even though I knew. God, I knew. "He's not working late," Jenna said quietly. "He's somewhere else. With someone else." The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to argue. Wanted to defend him, defend my marriage, defend the 7 years we'd built together. But I couldn't because deep down I'd known for days. Maybe weeks. "I can't deal with this right now," I whispered. "I can barely deal with not being able to walk. I can't handle him cheating on top of everything else." Jenna reached over and squeezed my hand. "I know. But ignoring it won't make it go away." He was right. He was absolutely right. And once she'd said it out loud, I couldn't stop noticing. Carter's phone became the most obvious tell. It was surgically attached to his hand now. He took it to the bathroom, slept with it on his nightstand face down, practically had a panic attack if I asked to see a photo or check the time on it. New clothes kept appearing in his closet. Shirts I'd never seen him buy. Expensive jeans that definitely hadn't been there a month ago. He'd started styling his hair differently, using product that made it look deliberately messy in that way that takes effort. He left for work at odd hours. Saturday mornings at 7. Sunday afternoons at 3. Weekday evenings at 9, claiming he had to finish something at the office, even though his job had never required that kind of schedule before. And when he came home he smelled different. Not like his usual soap and deodorant. Like perfume. Floral and sweet and definitely not mine. I started asking questions. Gentle ones at first. "How was work today?" "Fine." "What project are you working on that needs so much overtime?" "Why are you interrogating me?" His voice sharp, defensive. "I'm dealing with a lot right now, Chloe. Can you just give me some space?" Space. He wanted space while I was trapped in a wheelchair in our apartment, unable to leave without help, unable to do anything without assistance. One night, about 5 weeks into my home recovery, I heard him on the phone in our bedroom. The door was closed but not completely. I could hear his voice through the gap. Low and intimate. Laughing in a way he hadn't laughed with me in weeks. That free, unguarded laugh that used to be reserved for inside jokes between us. When he came out 20 minutes later, I asked as casually as I could manage, "Who were you talking to?" "Just Derek from work," he said without missing a beat. "You wouldn't understand. It's technical stuff." Derek. His college friend who worked in a completely different field. Who I'd met a dozen times and who definitely didn't inspire that kind of laughter. "Right," I said. "Technical stuff." He looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Guilt maybe. Or annoyance that I was questioning him. "I'm going to bed," he announced, even though it was only 8:30. I sat in the living room alone, the apartment dark except for the glow of my laptop screen. I understood perfectly. I just wasn't ready to face it yet, because facing it meant admitting I was trapped. Physically unable to leave, financially dependent since my freelance income had dropped to almost nothing, emotionally shattered. What was I supposed to do? Will myself out the door and into a new life? The truth was I was stuck. And he knew it. 8 weeks after the accident, everything exploded into the open. It was a Saturday night. Carter had been gone all day, left at 10 in the morning claiming he had to finish a project at the office even though it was the weekend. I was in the living room working on a logo design for one of my few remaining clients, trying to maintain some semblance of income and normalcy. The work helped. Gave me something to focus on besides the pain and the wheelchair and the marriage crumbling around me. It was almost 10 when I heard his key in the lock. Then voices. Plural. My stomach dropped. The door opened and Carter walked in with a woman. She had her arm looped through his, both of them clearly buzzed, laughing about something. She was tall, blonde, pretty in that effortless way some women are. Wearing a dress that was too nice for a casual Saturday. They stopped when they saw me sitting there in my wheelchair in the dim living room light, laptop balanced on my thighs. Carter's expression wasn't guilt. Wasn't surprise. It was irritation, like I was a piece of furniture in the wrong place, disrupting his plans. "Oh," he said, tone flat. "You're still awake." "Still awake in my own living room," I said slowly, voice eerily calm despite my heart hammering. "Interesting observation. Who's this?" The woman smiled. Not friendly. Condescending. Pitying in a way that made my skin crawl. "I'm Vanessa," she said, voice smooth and confident. "Carter and I are old friends. Catching up." Vanessa. I knew that name. His ex-girlfriend from college. The one he'd dated for 2 years before we met. The one he claimed to have zero contact with. "Old friends," I repeated, looking at their linked arms. "Is that what we're calling it?" Carter had the audacity to look annoyed. "Chloe. Don't start. Don't start." My voice went up an octave. "You brought your ex-girlfriend into our apartment at 10 p.m. without telling me, and I'm not supposed to react?" Vanessa's smile widened. She was enjoying this. "Carter mentioned you were going through a difficult time," she said, that same condescending tone. "I just wanted to offer support." Support. I turned my wheelchair slightly to face them both fully. How thoughtful. "Carter, can I talk to you? Alone." He looked at Vanessa. Then back at me. And said the words that confirmed everything I'd been afraid to acknowledge. "Anything you want to say, you can say in front of her." The room went very quiet. The laptop fan hummed. Outside, someone's car alarm went off briefly, then stopped. "Get out," I said to Vanessa, voice shaking with fury I could barely contain. She looked at Carter. He shrugged. "You don't own this place alone, Chloe," he said. "I have just as much right to invite people over. Not your ex-girlfriend while your wife is sitting here in a wheelchair." Vanessa's expression shifted to something uglier. She stepped forward, emboldened by Carter's support. "Maybe if you weren't so focused on yourself," she said, voice dripping with false sympathy, "Carter wouldn't need outside companionship." The room went silent. Even Carter looked uncomfortable for a split second. "What did you just say?" I whispered. Carter stepped forward. And then he said the words I would replay in my head 1,000 times. The words that ended our marriage completely and irreversibly. "She's not wrong, Chloe. You're completely worthless right now. Every part of you is broken and useless. You can't work properly, can't take care of yourself, can't even satisfy me anymore. What am I supposed to do? Just wait around hoping you eventually become functional again?" Vanessa actually giggled. Slipped her arm around his waist possessively. He needs someone who can actually be a partner, she said. I stared at them both. At Carter, who'd promised in sickness and in health, 7 years ago in front of 150 people. At Vanessa, who'd clearly been circling back into his life the second I became vulnerable. And something inside me went cold. Calculating. They thought I was helpless. Broken. Trapped. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Okay, I said quietly. Carter frowned. Vanessa looked confused. They'd clearly expected tears, begging, maybe a dramatic breakdown. Okay, what? Carter asked. Hey. I understand completely. Thanks for the honesty. I closed my laptop, set it carefully on the side table. You should both leave now. Leave. Carter actually laughed. I live here. Then she leaves, I said, voice steady despite my heart hammering. Or I call the police and report her for trespassing. Vanessa's smug smile vanished. You can't be serious. Watch me. I pulled out my phone, held it up so they could both see. This apartment lease is in my name. My late grandmother's trust fund paid the deposit and covers 70% of the rent. Legally, I can decide who's welcome here. And she's not. Carter's face went red. You're being ridiculous. I'm being clear. She goes or I dial 911 right now. Vanessa looked at Carter, waiting for him to fight for her, to defend their relationship. He stood there, torn between his pride and the reality of legal consequences. Finally, he nodded toward the door. This is temporary, Vanessa hissed at me as she grabbed her purse. He's already done with you. The door slammed behind her. Carter stood in the entryway, arms crossed, glaring at me like I'd committed some unforgivable offense. Happy now? He asked. Not even remotely, I said. But we'll talk about this tomorrow when you're sober. He went to the bedroom. Slammed that door too. Within seconds I heard his voice. Low, angry, probably calling Vanessa to complain about his unreasonable wife. I sat in the dark living room, hands shaking, adrenaline making my whole body vibrate. And then I made a decision. Not an emotional one. A strategic one. I picked up my phone and texted Jenna. I'll need your help with something. Can you come over tomorrow morning? Her response came in seconds. What happened? Everything. I'll explain tomorrow. It's important. I'll be there at 9. Then I scrolled through my contacts and found Richard Pemberton, the attorney who'd handled my grandmother's estate 2 years ago. Left a voicemail asking for an urgent consultation about divorce options. Called my bank's 24-hour customer service line. Explained I needed to discuss separating finances from my husband. The representative said they could send a mobile banker to my apartment given my current disability. By 2 in the morning, sitting alone in that wheelchair in the apartment my inheritance funded, I felt something shift inside me. Not heartbreak. That would come in waves later, catching me off guard at random moments. This was colder. Clearer. Sharper. Carter had shown me exactly who he was when I needed him most. Now I'd show him what happened when you underestimated a woman you'd broken. I wouldn't cry. Wouldn't beg. Wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me destroyed. I would document. Plan. Execute. Jenna arrived at 9 sharp the next morning. Carter had already left. No note, no explanation, just gone before I woke up. She came in carrying coffee and that determined expression I'd seen a handful of times over the years. The expression that meant she was ready to go to war for someone she loved. Tell me everything, she said, sitting across from me. I did. Every word Carter had said. Every detail about Vanessa. The arm around his waist. The condescending smile. The way he told me I was worthless while she stood there giggling. Jenna's face went from concerned to furious to something colder. More determined. Okay, she said when I finished. What do you need? I had a list. I'd been working on it since 2 that morning. Security cameras, I said. I need them installed today. Living room, entrance, kitchen. Nothing in bedrooms, just common areas. Because he's going to bring her back here, and when he does, I want video evidence. Jenna nodded, already pulling out her phone. My brother Marcus does home security. Let me call him right now. Also, I continued, I need help moving my important documents. Birth certificate, marriage license, financial records, my grandmother's trust documents. Everything. I want them somewhere Carter can't access them. My place works. What else? I need to understand my legal options. The attorney is supposed to call back this afternoon. Good. What about money? Bank sending someone over. I need to protect my inheritance, separate my accounts. Jenna looked at me with something like pride. You've been busy. I had a lot of time to think last night. We spent the next 3 hours organizing. Jenna went through my file cabinet, pulling documents and packing them carefully into a bag she'd brought. Birth certificate. Marriage license. I felt a pang looking at that one, remembering the day 7 years ago when I'd actually believed those vows meant something. Financial records. My grandmother's trust paperwork showing the inheritance that had paid for most of our life together. Marcus showed up around noon. He was Jenna's younger brother, mid-20s, with the same sharp eyes and no-nonsense attitude. He took one look at me in the wheelchair and didn't ask invasive questions, just got to work. Professional-grade equipment. Small, discreet cameras with excellent resolution. One tucked in the living room corner behind a plant. One positioned to cover the front door and entryway. One in the kitchen aimed at the common area. All connected to an app on my phone. Recording continuously. Uploading to encrypted cloud storage automatically. This feels very spy movie, Marcus said as we tested the feed on my phone. That's because my marriage became a bad Netflix drama, I replied. He grinned despite the grim situation. Well, now you've got evidence for the finale. Jenna handed him cash. I tried to pay but she waved me off, and he left with a promise to check the system remotely and make sure everything stayed running smoothly. Patricia, the mobile banker, arrived at 3. Professional woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She set up her laptop on the coffee table and showed zero judgment as I explained the situation. I need to protect my inheritance, I said. Separate my freelance income. But I don't want to do anything that could hurt me legally in divorce proceedings. Smart thinking, Patricia said. She walked me through the process. Opening a new individual account in just my name. Transferring my inherited money, completely protected as premarital assets. Moving my current freelance income. Leaving shared expenses accessible from the joint account to show I wasn't trying to financially destroy him, just protect myself. Protect yourself first, play fair second, Patricia said as she finished the paperwork. That's the order that keeps you safe in divorce. Richard, my attorney, called at 4. I gave him everything. The confrontation, Carter's exact words, Vanessa's presence, the camera system now recording everything, the financial separation I just completed. You're doing this exactly right, Richard said, approval clear in his voice. Document everything. Keep detailed records. Don't engage emotionally. Let him dig his own grave and then we bury him with evidence. How long does divorce take? I asked. Depends on how cooperative he is. But with what you're describing, verbal abuse, infidelity, you owning the apartment, I'd estimate 2 to 3 months if he doesn't fight. Longer if he does, but he won't win. When Carter came home that night at 8, I was in the living room. The camera's recording everything from 3 different angles. You eat? He asked, not looking at me. Yeah. Good. That was our entire interaction. He microwaved something in the kitchen, took it to the bedroom, closed the door. I heard the TV turn on. Some sports game. He had no idea the walls were watching. The next 4 days followed the same pattern. Carter leaving early, 7, sometimes 6 in the morning. Returning late, 9, 10 at night. Minimal communication beyond bare necessities. Doing laundry, need anything? No. Ordering food, want some? Already ate. I spent the time productively. Researched divorce law specific to our state. Talked to Richard twice more, clarifying questions about asset division and proof of infidelity. Started a detailed log in a password-protected document. Carter's comings and goings, times his mood when he was home, any unusual behavior. I also started working on my physical strength. Not my legs. Those were still useless, casts heavy and uncomfortable. But my upper body. My physical therapist had given me exercises weeks ago that I'd barely done because asking Carter for help retrieving the resistance bands felt like too much trouble. Jenna brought new ones. Helped me create a routine. Arm curls. Shoulder presses. Core work that didn't involve my legs. The pain was excruciating. Muscles I'd neglected for weeks screaming in protest. Sweat pouring down my face. But I pushed through because if I was going into battle, and I needed to be as strong as possible. You're really doing this, Jenna said, watching me struggle through a set of exercises. I'm really doing this, I confirmed. Thursday night I was in the living room doing arm work with the resistance bands. 9 o'clock. Carter wasn't home yet, which had become normal. I heard his key in the lock at 9:15. Then I heard voices. Plural. My stomach dropped, but this time it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. The door opened. Carter walked in. Vanessa right behind him. He saw me mid-exercise, resistance band stretched between my hands, sweat on my forehead. And he actually rolled his eyes. Seriously? Can't you do that in the bedroom? This is my apartment, I said evenly, not stopping the exercise. I'll do this wherever I want. They stood there like I was the intruder. Like I didn't belong in my own living room. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The cameras were rolling. We're going to hang out, Carter announced, gesturing toward the couch like he was offering Vanessa a seat in his personal living room. You should probably give us some privacy. I set down the resistance band. Let it fall to my lap. No. Simple. Direct. One word. Carter looked genuinely shocked. Like the concept of me refusing him something hadn't occurred to him in weeks. Excuse me. I said no. I'm not going anywhere. She needs to leave. Vanessa stepped forward and I could see the confidence radiating off her. Whatever lies Carter had been telling her, whatever version of our marriage he'd painted where I was the problem and he was the victim, she believed it completely. Look, Chloe, she said, voice dripping with false sympathy. I get that this is hard for you, but Carter and I are together now. You need to accept reality. Together. She said it so casually. So matter-of-factly. Like my marriage was just a formality they'd moved past. Like 7 years meant nothing. Like the vows Carter had spoken in front of our families and friends were just words that expired the moment I became inconvenient. Get out of my apartment, I said, voice steady despite the fury building in my chest. Carter crossed his arms. She's my guest. She's staying. This lease is in my name, I said slowly, deliberately. My money pays 70% of the rent. My grandmother's trust fund covers this place. Legally, she's trespassing. Vanessa actually laughed. A sharp, mocking sound. What are you going to do? She asked, looking down at me in the wheelchair with undisguised contempt. Roll over here and physically remove me? The room went very still. I looked at Carter. Waited for him to say something. To defend me. To tell his ex-girlfriend that mocking his disabled wife crossed a line. He said nothing. And then he made it worse. She can't do anything, Van, he said, and his voice had that same casual cruelty from days earlier. She's worthless right now. Completely broken and useless. Can't work a real job, can't take care of herself, can't satisfy me in any way that matters. That's why I need someone functional. Someone who actually works. Vanessa smirked. Moved closer to him. Slipped her hand into his. Someone who can keep up, she added. I pulled out my phone. Started dialing 911. Carter's eyes went wide. What the hell are you doing? Calling the police, I said calmly, thumb hovering over the call button. She's trespassing. You've both been warned. Now there are consequences. You're insane, Vanessa shrieked. I pressed call. The operator answered on the second ring. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, I have an unwanted person in my apartment refusing to leave. I'm disabled and unable to physically remove her myself. I need assistance. Carter lunged forward, reaching for my phone. I rolled backward in the wheelchair, faster than he expected, staying out of reach. She's my wife and she's having some kind of breakdown, Carter said loudly, voice pitched so the operator would hear. She's not thinking clearly. Sir, I'm speaking with the caller. The operator cut in, voice firm and professional. Ma'am, are you in immediate danger? Potentially, I said, keeping my eyes on Carter as he stood there breathing hard, face purple with rage. My husband is becoming aggressive and his guest is refusing to leave after multiple requests. Officers are dispatched to your location. Stay on the line. Vanessa's confidence evaporated like steam. Her face went pale. Carter, I'm not dealing with cops, she said, already backing toward the door. I'm leaving. Don't you dare, Carter started. Figure out your situation, she told him, grabbing her purse from where she dropped it on the couch. And then she ran. Literally ran out the door and down the hallway. So much for their great romance. So much for being together. The second real consequences appeared, she abandoned him without a backward glance. Carter stood there breathing hard, staring at me with something close to hatred. You just ruined everything, he said. No, I replied calmly, phone still at my ear, operator still on the line. I documented everything. There's a difference. The officers arrived 6 minutes later. I heard their knock, professional, firm, and called out that the door was unlocked. 2 of them. One older male officer, maybe late 40s, with graying hair and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything. One younger female officer, 30s, sharp-eyed and observant. They took in the scene immediately. Me in the wheelchair, medical equipment visible in the corner. The shower chair, the medication organizer, the physical therapy bands I'd been using. Carter standing in the middle of the room, face still red, body language aggressive. Evening, the older officer said. We got a call about a trespassing incident? Yes, I said, keeping my voice calm and clear. My husband brought his girlfriend here despite my repeated objections. I asked her to leave. She refused and mocked my disability. When I insisted, she finally left, but only after I called you. The female officer was already taking notes. Where is she now? She ran when she heard officers were coming, I said. Carter made a sound, half laugh, half scoff. This is ridiculous. Chloe's being vindictive. Using her injury to control the situation, to manipulate. Sir, the older officer interrupted. Let her finish. I explained everything. Calmly. Factually. This wasn't the first time he'd brought Vanessa here. The verbal abuse. His words about me being worthless. The escalation tonight. I mentioned my disability made me vulnerable. That I couldn't physically defend myself or leave if the situation became dangerous. Carter tried to spin it differently. Said I was being controlling. That I was weaponizing my disability. That his friend had just been trying to offer support. The female officer looked around the apartment again. Really looked. At the wheelchair. The medical equipment. The setup that made it obvious someone was recovering from serious trauma. Sir, she said to Carter, is this your apartment? I live here, he said defensively. Is your name on the lease? He hesitated. I could see him weighing his options. It's our apartment. That's not what I asked, she said, voice patient but firm. The lease is in her name, he admitted. But I live here. I pay bills. I have rights. But nothing, the older officer cut in. If she's asked someone to leave her leased property and they refused, that's trespassing. The fact that you're married doesn't override her legal rights as the leaseholder. I watched Carter process this. Watched him realize his assumptions about automatic rights to everything were wrong. Am I being arrested? He asked, voice quieter now. Not tonight, the female officer said. But we're documenting this incident. Ma'am, do you feel safe with him here? I paused. Let the question hang in the air for several seconds. I'm not sure anymore, I said honestly. Tonight was escalating. I don't know what happens next time. That got written down in the report. The officers asked Carter to step outside. They talked to him on the building's front steps for 15 minutes. I could see them through the window. The older officer doing most of the talking, Carter's body language defensive at first, then gradually deflating. When they came back, the older officer handed me a card. We've advised your husband that any future incidents will result in arrest, he said. We've also given him information about finding alternate accommodation if the situation remains untenable. You should consider filing a formal complaint if this pattern continues. Thank you, I said. They left. Carter came back inside and went straight to the bedroom without looking at me. I heard drawers slamming. Things being shoved around. Hangers scraping against the closet rod. He emerged 20 minutes later with a duffel bag stuffed full. I'm staying at Derek's, he announced. Derek. His college friend who lived across town. This is temporary. We'll figure out the apartment situation with lawyers. Hey, I said. He stopped. Seemed surprised I wasn't crying or begging him to stay. That's it, he asked. Just okay? What else is there to say? You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences. He stared at me for a long moment. Like he was looking at a stranger. Like the woman he'd married had been replaced by someone he didn't recognize. Which I suppose I had been. The woman he'd married wouldn't have called police. Wouldn't have fought back. Would have accepted his cruelty and tried to fix herself to meet his standards. But that woman died somewhere between his first resentful sigh and his declaration that I was worthless. That woman died when he brought his ex-girlfriend into our home and expected me to just accept it. You'll regret this, he finally said. I really won't, I replied. He left. I heard his footsteps in the hallway. Heard the elevator ding. Heard the building's front door close. I sat in the quiet apartment, surrounded by the life we'd built together, and felt nothing but relief. The pretending was finally over. I called Richard first thing the next morning. I'm ready to file, I said when he answered. Good. Can you come to my office today? I'll need a ride. My friend Jenna can bring me. Perfect. Let's say 11. Bring everything you've documented. Jenna picked me up at 10:30. Helped me into her car, folded the wheelchair and put it in the trunk with practiced efficiency. She'd done this dozens of times by now. You okay? She asked as we pulled out of the parking lot. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. She glanced at me. You seem different. Calmer. I know exactly what I'm doing now, I said. That helps. Richard's office was downtown in a modest building that didn't try to impress with marble floors or expensive art. Just professional. Competent. Which was exactly what I needed. He met us in the lobby, shook my hand, led us back to a conference room where he'd already set up. Legal pads. Recording equipment. Show me what you have, he said. I did. Everything. The camera footage from that Thursday night. Carter and Vanessa walking in together, their body language intimate and familiar. The audio of Carter calling me worthless, broken, useless. Vanessa's mocking laughter. The entire confrontation captured in high-definition video from 3 angles. The police report from that night. Professional. Documenting Carter's aggressive behavior, Vanessa's presence, my statement about feeling unsafe. Financial records showing my grandmother's trust fund had paid for 70% of our rent for the past 5 years. The lease with only my name on it. Bank statements showing my freelance income had supported most of our lifestyle. Richard watched the videos twice. Read through the police report carefully. Examined the financial documents with the attention to detail that made him good at his job. This is unusually well documented, he finally said, looking up at me with something like professional admiration. Your husband essentially gave us everything we need to destroy any claim he might make. So we can file today? We can file today, he confirmed. We spent the next 2 hours going through the petition. Grounds for divorce. Irreconcilable differences, though Richard noted we could add adultery if Carter contested anything. Division of assets. Apartment and trust fund were mine as premarital property. We'd split the minimal shared assets. Furniture, some savings, the small joint checking account. What about spousal support? I asked. Richard shook his head. He has no case. You have documented proof of verbal abuse and infidelity. Plus he was employed throughout your marriage and is employed now. Courts don't look kindly on someone who abandons their disabled spouse then demands money. Good. We filed that afternoon. Richard submitted everything electronically, then sent a courtesy copy to Carter's last known address, Derek's house across town. He'll be formally served in about 3 days, Richard said. Expect him to call. Don't answer. Let everything go to voicemail, then forward those messages to me. Understood. Carter got served 3 days later on Monday morning. I'd specifically asked Richard to have him served at his office during business hours. Maximum embarrassment. The call started 20 minutes later. First call, Chloe, what the hell? Divorce papers? We need to talk about this. I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Second call, you can't just throw away 7 years. Call me back. Third call, this is insane. You're overreacting. I made a mistake, okay? Can we please just talk? By the end of the first hour, he'd called 19 times. The voicemails progressed through stages. Anger. Desperation. Back to anger. You manipulative witch, one message said, his voice shaking with rage. You planned this. You've been planning this the whole time, weaponizing your disability to trap me. Another. My attorney says you have no right to keep the apartment. We'll see you in court. And then later that night, please. Please just talk to me. We can fix this. I'll go to counseling. Whatever you need. Just call me back. I forwarded every single message to Richard. Perfect, he said when I called him the next morning. Especially that one about weaponizing your disability. He's making our case for us. Carter's parents called 2 days after he was served. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Chloe. His mother's voice was tight. Controlled. I agree. We need to talk about what you're doing to Carter. What I'm doing to him. He's devastated. He told us you trapped him. That you're weaponizing your injury to force out his friend who was just trying to help during a difficult time. That you called the police on him for no reason. I let her talk. Didn't interrupt. Let her defend her son for 5 full minutes. Every accusation, every justification, every claim that I was being unreasonable and vindictive. When she finally paused for breath, I spoke. Are you finished? Silence. Good. Now let me tell you what actually happened. My voice was calm. Steady. Carter brought his ex-girlfriend into our apartment while I was recovering from an accident that shattered both my legs. Multiple times. When I confronted them, he told me I was completely worthless, broken, and useless. That I couldn't satisfy him anymore. His exact words. I have video evidence of this, by the way. The police were called because his girlfriend was trespassing in my apartment after I asked her to leave and she refused. Would you like me to send you the footage? Or the police report? Or the recording of your son calling me a manipulative witch in a voicemail? The silence on the other end was absolute. We didn't know any of this, his mother finally whispered. How you do, I said. Your son didn't leave because I'm difficult. He left because I refused to let him disrespect me in my own home while I'm learning to walk again. He left because I wouldn't just accept him cheating on me while I was disabled. That's what happened. Not the story he told you. She made a small sound. Maybe a sob. Maybe just shock. I have to go, she said. The call disconnected. They never called back. Later, through a mutual friend who knew Carter's cousin, I heard they'd stopped giving Carter money. That his father had told him he was deeply disappointed. That his mother had asked for the camera footage and watched it, then apparently cried for an hour. Good. The mediation happened 6 weeks into the divorce process. Required by the court before we could go to trial, though Richard was confident we wouldn't need trial. We met in a neutral office downtown. The mediator was a woman in her 60s named Margaret Flores. No-nonsense, experienced, the kind of person who'd heard every excuse and seen every tactic. Carter showed up with his attorney. Not the fancy one he'd mentioned hiring back when we were still married. This one was younger, looked harried, kept checking his watch like he had somewhere else to be. Money was clearly tight for Carter. His attorney made the opening argument. Carter deserved half the apartment's value because they'd been married 7 years. Community property. Marital assets. Richard didn't even stand up. Just handed Margaret a folder. The apartment lease is in my client's name exclusively, he said. Funded entirely by her premarital inheritance from her grandmother. Not a single dollar of marital income went toward that apartment. It's separate property under state law. Margaret reviewed the documents. Looked at Carter's attorney. He's correct. Next claim. Carter's attorney tried again. Spousal support. Carter had supported her emotionally through her recovery from the accident. He deserved compensation for the caregiving duties he'd performed. Richard pulled out his laptop. Set it up where everyone could see the screen. I'd like to enter into evidence video footage from my client's apartment security system, he said. He played the video from that Thursday night. Carter and Vanessa walking in together. The confrontation. Carter's words, "You're completely worthless right now. Every part of you is broken and useless. You can't work properly, can't take care of yourself, can't even satisfy me anymore." Margaret's expression went cold. "Mr. Bennett," she said, looking directly at Carter. "That is not support. That's abandonment and verbal abuse." Carter's face went purple. "That's taken out of context." "The context," Richard interrupted smoothly, "is that he said these things to his disabled wife while his ex-girlfriend stood in their apartment." Carter's attorney tried one more time. The police report was exaggerated. His client had been unfairly portrayed. Richard had the officer's body cam footage. Margaret watched 30 seconds, then held up her hand. "I've seen enough. Here's my recommendation. Mr. Bennett receives his personal vehicle, his personal belongings, and half of the couple's shared checking account balance, which I see is approximately $6,000. Mrs. Bennet retains the apartment, her inheritance, and all premarital assets. No spousal support. No claim to separate property. Both parties responsible for their own legal fees. That's not fair, Carter started. That's generous, Mr. Bennet, Margaret cut in. Given what I've seen today, you're lucky your wife isn't pursuing additional damages for emotional distress. The mediation was over in 47 minutes. Carter got his car, his clothes, his personal belongings. $3,000 from our checking account. 0 claim to my apartment. 0 claim to my trust fund. 0 spousal support. His attorney advised him to sign. He signed. The divorce was finalized in 9 weeks total. Record speed, Richard said. Most divorces took 6 months minimum. But most divorces didn't have this much documentation. This much clear evidence of fault. I expected to feel something when Richard called to tell me the final papers had been filed. Sadness. Relief. Maybe anger. Instead I felt light. Like I'd been carrying a weight so long I'd forgotten it was there, and now suddenly it was gone. How do you feel? Jenna asked when I told her. She'd driven me to get coffee, real coffee this time, not decaf, because I was finally off the heavy pain medications. I thought about it while I sipped my latte. Free, I finally said. Damaged but free. She squeezed my hand across the table. You're not damaged. You're recovering. There's a difference. That distinction mattered more than she knew. Carter had tried to convince me my injury made me worthless. That being disabled meant I deserved to be abandoned, cheated on, discarded. The divorce proved something different. Proved I was worth fighting for, worth my own fight. That night, alone in my apartment that was finally, legally, solely mine, I slept better than I had in months. The morning after the divorce finalized, I woke up early and called Dr. Mitchell's office. I want to accelerate my physical therapy, I told the receptionist. Whatever it takes. I'm ready to push harder. She scheduled me for an evaluation that afternoon. Dr. Mitchell examined my legs carefully, comparing new x-rays to the ones from 2 months prior. She studied the images for a long time, her expression thoughtful. The bone healing is progressing better than expected, she finally said. Nerve function appears to be returning faster than we initially projected. I think we can start attempting partial weight-bearing exercises. When? I'll have Marco start with you tomorrow if you're ready. But Chloe, I need you to understand, this is going to be extremely painful. We're asking bones and nerves that have been traumatized to start functioning again. Some patients find it overwhelming. I'm ready, I said. I wasn't ready. Nothing could have prepared me for that first session with Marco the next day. He was my physical therapist, late 30s, former college athlete, the kind of person whose enthusiasm was usually infectious. He'd been working with me since I came home from the hospital, but mostly on upper body strength and flexibility exercises. This was different. He led me to the parallel bars, 2 waist-high metal rails about 3 feet apart. They looked innocuous, like something from an elementary school playground. We're just going to try standing today, Marco said. I'll be right here. You'll hold the bars. We'll see how much weight your legs can bear. He helped me transfer from the wheelchair to a position between the bars. My hands gripped the cold metal. My legs, still weak, still foreign, hung uselessly beneath me. Okay, Marco said. On 3, try to push yourself up. I've got you. 1, 2, 3. I pushed. The pain was instant and absolutely breathtaking. Not pain like a cut or a bruise. Pain like someone had driven railroad spikes through both femurs and then set the nerves on fire. Pain that made my vision go white around the edges. I made a sound, not quite a scream, more like a choked gasp. You're up, Marco said, voice urgent and encouraging. You're standing, Chloe. You're doing it. I was shaking so violently the parallel bars rattled. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Like they might collapse at any second. The room tilted. My stomach lurched. I'm going to be sick, I managed. That's normal. Breathe. Just breathe. You're doing amazing. I lasted maybe 15 seconds before my legs gave out and Marco caught me, easing me back into the wheelchair. I was crying. Couldn't help it. The pain was still reverberating through my body like aftershocks. Marco crouched down to eye level. That was incredible. 15 seconds on your first try? Most patients can barely manage 5. It felt like dying, I said through tears. I know. But you did it. And tomorrow we'll try for 20 seconds. He looked concerned, probably thought I'd refuse to come back. That I'd decide it was too much. We can stop, he said gently. This is huge progress already. We don't have to push. I looked at him through tears I refused to let keep falling. Keep going, I said. Tomorrow. 20 seconds. I'll be here. We worked 5 days a week after that. 2 hours per session. Marco pushed me hard but never past what my body could handle. Standing exercises. Weight shifting. Tiny movements that felt monumental. Progress was agonizingly slow. Measurable in seconds. Week 1. 45 seconds standing before my legs gave out. Week 2. A full minute then 90 seconds. Week 3. 3 minutes with minimal trembling. Carter didn't know about any of this. We had zero contact. Everything went through Richard when necessary, which wasn't often now that the divorce was finalized. But Jenna's intelligence network was thorough. Her cousin Hannah worked the front desk at the gym Carter had joined, the expensive one downtown with the juice bar and the personal trainers. They're always there together, Hannah reported to Jenna, who reported to me. Carter and some blonde woman. Very couple-y. Matching workout clothes and everything. Had to be. Jenna showed me their social media. Carter had made his Instagram public again, probably to show off his new relationship. Photos of them at restaurants. Some hiking trail. Holding hands in front of a sunset with the caption, "New beginnings with the right person." Another post. A photo of Vanessa laughing at something off camera. Carter's caption, "Finally found someone who understands what partnership really means." It made my blood boil. But I channeled that anger into something productive. Into motivation. Every exercise that made me want to quit, I thought about Carter's words. Worthless. Broken. Useless. Every time my legs screamed in protest during physical therapy, I imagined his face when he'd eventually see me standing. Walking. Thriving. Marco noticed the shift in my determination around week 4. "You're pushing yourself really hard," he said one afternoon after I'd insisted on trying to stand for 5 minutes straight despite visible trembling. "What's driving this?" I looked at him. Considered lying. Decided honesty was easier. "Revenge is an excellent motivator," I said. He laughed. Thought I was joking. I wasn't. Every step I took toward recovery was a step away from the woman Carter thought he'd broken. Every second I stayed standing was proof that his words were lies. 4.5 months after the accident, 2 months after the divorce finalized, I took my first steps. We'd been building toward it for weeks. Standing exercises had progressed to weight shifting. Weight shifting to lifting one foot slightly off the ground while holding the parallel bars. Then the other foot. Marco brought in a walker that morning. Standard aluminum frame with tennis balls on the back legs. "Today we try walking," he announced. My stomach dropped with nervousness and anticipation. He positioned the walker in front of me while I stood gripping the parallel bars. My legs were trembling but holding. "Transfer your hands to the walker. I'll be right behind you. If you start to fall, I've got you." I moved my hands. Gripped the walker. It felt less stable than the bars. "Now," Marco said, "slide your right foot forward. Just a few inches." I did. The movement was awkward, painful, but my foot moved. Good. Now left foot. I slid my left foot forward. "That's one step." He just took one step. "Do it again. Right foot. Left foot." 3 steps total before my legs started shaking too badly to continue. I collapsed into the wheelchair Marco had positioned nearby, gasping and crying and laughing all at once. "That's exceptional progress, Chloe," Marco said, grinning like a proud parent. "Most patients at your stage are still just standing. You're walking." "I'm spite walking," I corrected through tears. "There's a difference." He didn't understand. But Jenna did when I called her immediately after the session. 3 steps, I said as soon as she answered. "Oh my God, Chloe." With a walker. Marco spotting me. But I walked. "That's amazing. Does Carter know?" "Not a clue," I said. "And he's not going to know until I'm ready." That felt like power. The kind Carter had taken from me when he called me worthless. The kind I was taking back one painful step at a time. Over the next 3 months I graduated from walker to cane. It wasn't smooth. There were setbacks. Days when my legs wouldn't cooperate, when the pain was too much, when I cried from frustration. But I kept pushing. By month 7 post-accident, I could walk across my apartment independently with just the cane. Slow, careful steps, but independent. By month 8, I was walking to the corner coffee shop. 3 blocks from my apartment. Took me 20 minutes when it used to take 5, but I made it. Mrs. Kim, the owner who'd known me since I moved to the neighborhood, actually teared up when she saw me walk through the door. "Chloe," she breathed. "You're walking." I didn't think. She stopped herself. "I'm so happy to see you on your feet." "Neither did my ex-husband," I said, accepting the latte she made without me having to order. She didn't ask what I meant, but her expression said she understood. I started taking short walks every evening. Around the block at first. Then 2 blocks. Then 3. Building strength and stamina gradually. Each walk felt like a small rebellion against everything Carter had tried to make me believe about myself. That I was broken. That I was worthless. That I would never be whole again. Every step proved him wrong. 4 months after the divorce finalized, 8 months after the accident, I was home with Jenna on a Saturday afternoon when my phone buzzed. Security camera alert. Motion detected at front door. I picked up my phone and opened the app. The camera feed showed someone standing in my hallway facing my door. Carter. My stomach dropped. He looked rough. Unshaven, at least 3 or 4 days of stubble darkening his jaw. Wrinkled button-down shirt that looked slept in. Dark circles under his eyes suggesting he wasn't sleeping well. He'd lost weight. His face looked gaunt, hollow. He was holding a shopping bag. I recognized the logo, the specialty coffee shop downtown where I used to buy beans before the accident. "That him?" Jenna asked, looking over my shoulder at the screen. I nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Want me to get it?" She was already standing, protective instinct fully activated. "Nah," I said, setting the phone down and reaching for my cane. "I got this." I stood up. Still needed the cane for balance, but I was standing under my own power. Walking across my living room toward the door. Jenna positioned herself several feet behind me. But I opened the door wide. Left it open. Wanted witnesses to whatever was about to happen. Carter's jaw literally dropped when he saw me standing there. "Chloe," he breathed, eyes going wide. You're walking." "Observant as ever," I said, voice flat and cold. "What do you want?" He tried to smile. The expression looked wrong on his face, like he'd forgotten how. Like his facial muscles couldn't quite remember the movement. He held up the bag. "I brought you something. Your favorite coffee beans. That Ethiopian blend you love. Thought maybe we could talk." I stared at him. This man who'd cheated on me while I was disabled. Who'd told me I was completely worthless and broken. Who'd brought his girlfriend into our home while I recovered from a life-altering accident that wasn't my fault. Who'd abandoned me when I needed him most. And now that he'd apparently seen me walking somewhere around town, the grocery store maybe, or the coffee shop, he showed up with coffee beans like that would somehow undo months of betrayal and cruelty. "Let me understand this," I said slowly, deliberately. "You saw me walking and that's when you decided to reach out?" "It's not like that." He scrambled for words, shifting his weight from foot to foot. I've been thinking about us. About everything. For months now." "Really?" "Yeah. Really." He took a breath. "Vanessa and it didn't work out. She was just using me for money and status. You were right about her all along." "Cool story," I said. "I'm serious, Chloe." He stepped closer to the doorway. Not inside, he wasn't that stupid, but closer. "I made mistakes. Huge mistakes. I was scared and overwhelmed when you got hurt. I didn't know how to handle it. I handled it terribly. But we had 7 good years before this. That has to count for something." I leaned on my cane. Jenna stood silent behind me, arms crossed, expression hard. "You want to know what those 7 years are worth?" I said. "About the same as those coffee beans. Which is nothing to me." His face crumpled. Actual emotion finally breaking through whatever rehearsed speech he'd prepared. "Don't say that. We loved each other. We built a life together. We can rebuild. I'll go to counseling. I'll do whatever you need. Just give me another chance." "You tried to build a new life while mine was shattered," I said. "I was just the foundation you stood on until you found something you thought was better. Then you tried to demolish me on your way out. That's not fair." His voice took on a defensive edge. "You weren't exactly easy to live with. You were depressed and demanding, and I had pulverized legs. I cut him off. I was learning to walk again. Sorry I wasn't sunshine and roses while my body was destroyed and my husband was cheating on me. He flinched at the word, cheating. Look, he said, voice dropping lower. More desperate. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm asking for forgiveness. For another chance. We can start over. Why now? I asked. Why show up now 8 months later, for months after our divorce finalized? He hesitated. And in that hesitation I saw the truth. Vanessa took me for everything, he finally admitted, voice barely above a whisper. She convinced me to invest in some opportunity. Said her friend was starting a company that we'd get in on the ground floor. I gave her $30,000. $30,000? I stared at him. Where did you even get that kind of money? Borrowed it from my parents. He couldn't meet my eyes. The investment was fake. She disappeared with the money. I couldn't make rent. Got evicted from Derek's place when I couldn't pay what I owed him. I'm broke, Chloe. Completely broke. I lost everything. There was the real reason for this visit. He didn't miss me. Didn't regret what he'd done. Didn't have some sudden moral awakening about his behavior. He was broke and desperate and needed someone to use financially. I need help, he said. Just temporary. Just until I get back on my feet. You have the apartment, the trust fund. You could. Then call Vanessa, I interrupted. Oh wait, she bailed when you became the liability. Funny how that works. You're being cruel. No. I'm being honest. You showed me exactly who you are when things got hard. I'm just refusing to forget. His expression hardened. The desperation sliding away, replaced by something uglier. So that's it, he asked, voice rising. After everything I did for you, all the years I supported you, one mistake and you throw it all away? One mistake. I almost laughed. Carter, you're delusional. He held out the bag of coffee beans. Shook it slightly. Just take the coffee, he said. Please. I drove an hour to bring this to you. No. Take it, Chloe. No. Don't be difficult. Just take the coffee. No. He threw the bag at me. Not handed it. Not set it down. Threw it like he was launching a basketball at a hoop. The bag sailed through the air. I tried to catch it, pure instinct, but my coordination was still rebuilding after months of not using my hands for anything requiring quick reflexes. The bag slipped through my fingers and hit the floor hard. The glass container inside shattered on impact. Coffee beans and glass shards exploded across my entryway floor in a spray of brown and glittering fragments. Look what you made me do. Carter yelled, pointing at the mess. You made me do that. Jenna stepped forward immediately, positioning herself between me and Carter. Dude, she said, voice deadly calm. You literally just threw it at her. She wouldn't take it. This is her fault. She's being stubborn and vindictive and... Get out, I said. No. Not until you understand what you're throwing away. I'm giving you a chance here, Chloe. A chance to fix this. To have your husband back. You're not my husband. We're divorced. Get out of my building. Not until you listen to me. Jenna, I said calmly. Call the police. She pulled out her phone immediately. Carter's eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. What? Are you serious? I brought you a gift. You threw glass at me, I said. You're trespassing. And you're about to be arrested if you don't leave right now. This is insane. It's coffee. It's assault, Jenna said, phone already at her ear. And you're covered in evidence of your terrible life choices. Carter looked at the shattered glass. At the coffee beans scattered across the floor. At his empty hands. Reality finally penetrated. Fine, he said, voice shaking. I'm leaving. But you're going to regret this, Chloe. You'll end up alone and broken and you'll remember that I tried to give you another chance. I'll take my chances, I said. He left. Practically ran down the hallway toward the elevator. We waited until we heard the elevator ding and the doors close. Then Jenna called the police anyway. I want this documented, I told her. In case he comes back. The officers arrived 15 minutes later. Same female officer from before. She recognized me immediately. Mrs. Bennett, she said, then corrected herself. Sorry. Miss Bennett now, right? Right. She and her partner took statements. photographed the shattered glass and scattered coffee beans. Documented Carter's appearance, his demands, the thrown bag. Want to press charges? She asked. Just want it documented, I said. Added to the file. In case he escalates. Smart move, she said, handing me a case number. After they left, Jenna and I cleaned up the mess. Swept up the glass and coffee beans. Mopped the floor. You okay? She asked when we finished. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I said. I actually am. And I meant it. I never heard from Carter again after that Saturday. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. Nothing. But Jenna's intelligence network, extensive, thorough, and apparently unstoppable, kept me updated without me having to ask. Hannah saw him at the gym, Jenna reported about 2 weeks after the coffee bean incident. He looks terrible. Lost more weight. Apparently he's working at that big box store near the mall. Stocking shelves or something. Carter, who'd had a decent corporate job with benefits and a 401k, was now working retail. What about Vanessa? I asked. Jenna's smile was sharp. That's the interesting part. She's gone. Disappeared completely. Deleted all her social media. Hannah said Carter comes to the gym alone now. Looks miserable. Carter had been telling the truth about one thing. Vanessa had indeed scammed him. The $30,000 he'd borrowed from his parents. Gone. Invested in a complete fabrication. Some fake startup that never existed. His parents cut him off financially, Jenna added. Apparently his dad told him he needed to face the consequences of his choices and wouldn't give him another cent. Good. But the real justice came 6 months later. I was at a coffee shop, not Mrs. Kim's place, a different one, working on a client's website design when Jenna called. Turn on the news, she said. Local station. Channel 5. Why? Just trust me. I pulled up the news station's website on my laptop. The headline made me actually laugh out loud, earning strange looks from other customers. Local woman arrested in investment fraud scheme. The photo showed Vanessa in handcuffs being led out of an apartment building by police. I clicked the video. The reporter explained that Vanessa Harper had been arrested for running an investment scam targeting multiple victims. She'd convinced at least 4 men, for that they knew about, to invest in a fake business opportunity, then disappeared with their money. Total amount stolen, over $100,000. The charges: felony fraud, grand theft, criminal impersonation. The reporter mentioned that the district attorney's office wasn't interested in plea deals due to the number of victims and the sophistication of the scheme. Karma worked overtime on that one, Jenna said when I called her back. How long do you think she'll get? My cousin who works in the DA's office says 18 months minimum. Maybe more depending on the judge. Plus she's facing civil lawsuits from all the victims. I thought about Carter, broke and working retail, realizing the woman he'd destroyed his marriage for had been using him the entire time. It should have felt better than it did. More satisfying. That I just felt tired. And grateful I'd gotten out when I did. I kept walking. Every day. Pushing myself a little further. By month 10 post-accident, I graduated from cane to walking independently. It wasn't perfect, I still limped when I was tired, still had days when my legs ached deep in the bones. But I could move through the world under my own power. My freelance graphic design business had actually grown during my recovery. Turns out when you're working from bed with nothing else to do, you respond to emails faster, you put everything you have into the projects you can control, you deliver work ahead of schedule. I'd gained 8 new clients during the months I was recovering. By month 11, I was making more money than I'd made at any point during my marriage. But the real transformation came from somewhere unexpected. I was at a physical therapy appointment, still going twice a week for maintenance, when another patient asked me about my injury. She was maybe 50, recovering from a car accident similar to mine, recently separated from her husband. He left 2 weeks after I came home from the hospital, she said quietly. Said he couldn't handle it. I knew that story. Lived that story. Did you have an attorney? I asked. She shook her head. I didn't even think about it. I was just trying to survive. Something clicked in my mind. I went home and created a website that night. Simple. Clean. Professional. Disability rights and divorce consulting. Protecting yourself during medical crises. I wrote about my experience, anonymized but honest. The betrayal. The legal battles. The importance of documentation, financial protection, understanding your rights when you're most vulnerable. I offered free initial consultations. Within a week, I had 3 inquiries. Within a month, I had 12 clients. People recovering from accidents, illnesses, surgeries. People whose partners had abandoned them or cheated or become abusive when they became disabled. People who needed someone who understood both the legal realities and the emotional devastation. I turned my nightmare into advocacy. By the end of the first year, I'd helped 23 people protect themselves legally during vulnerable medical situations. Walked them through filing for divorce, protecting assets, documenting abuse, understanding disability rights. It gave me purpose beyond my own revenge. Made the suffering mean something beyond just my own story. I started dating again after a year and a half. Hesitantly at first. Coffee dates where I was brutally honest upfront about my limitations, the limp that got worse when I was tired, the emotional scars that probably weren't completely healed. Most men were polite but clearly uncomfortable. The limp bothered them, or the story bothered them, or the idea of dating someone who'd been through trauma was too complicated. Then I met Daniel. I was speaking at a disability rights workshop downtown, talking about the intersection of medical crisis and divorce law, when I noticed him in the third row taking detailed notes. After my presentation, he approached me. "That was incredibly informative," he said. "I'm an attorney specializing in medical discrimination cases. I should know this stuff cold, but you provided perspectives I'd never considered." We talked for 3 hours after the workshop ended. About law and advocacy and the gaps in the system. About how people who became disabled during relationships were uniquely vulnerable. He asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. On our second date, when I explained my scars, physical and emotional, he said something that shifted my entire perspective. "Scars aren't defects," he said, looking directly at me. "They're evidence you survived something that tried to destroy you. That's not weakness. That's power." I almost cried. We took things slowly. He never made me feel broken or insufficient. When I had bad pain days, and I still had them, probably always would, he'd bring dinner and we'd watch movies, and he never once made me feel like a burden. When I had good days, we'd take long walks, and he never complained about my pace or suggested we should move faster. 6 months into dating, he met Jenna. She interrogated him thoroughly. Asked about his intentions, his past relationships, his views on disability, his financial situation, basically everything except his blood type. "This one's different," she told me afterward. "Keep him." I intended to. I never bought Ethiopian coffee beans again. Couldn't even walk past them in the grocery store without feeling a visceral physical reaction. My stomach would clench, my hands would start shaking slightly. But that was okay. Some triggers you don't overcome. You just learn to navigate around them. I replaced that coffee with a different blend. Created new morning routines. Built a life that looked nothing like the one I'd had with Carter. Jenna asked me once, almost 2 years after the divorce, if I'd forgiven him. We were having lunch at her place. Her daughter was napping upstairs. She'd had the baby 8 months earlier, a beautiful girl named Sophie. "Have you forgiven Carter?" she asked, pouring tea. I thought about it carefully. Really considered the question instead of giving an automatic answer. "I don't think forgiveness is the point," I finally said. "He showed me who he really was when I was most vulnerable. I'm not going to forget that or pretend it didn't matter. But I'm also not going to let it define my entire life. He took 9 months from me. I'm not giving him more." She nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. The truth was simpler than forgiveness or revenge. Some stains don't wash out. You can scrub and bleach and try everything, but they remain. But sometimes you realize the stain was never on you in the first place. It was on him all along. And I'd walked away clean. I still limped sometimes. Still had scars. Visible ones on my legs from the surgeries, invisible ones in places I couldn't show anyone. But I was walking. Under my own power. Building a life I actually wanted instead of one I'd settled for. Dating someone who saw my strength instead of my damage. Helping people protect themselves the way I'd had to learn to protect myself. Living in an apartment that was solely mine, filled with furniture I'd chosen, decorated the way I wanted, free from resentment and heavy sighs. Carter had tried to break me. Told me I was worthless and useless and broken. But every step I took proved him wrong. Every client I helped. Every morning I woke up in my own space without walking on eggshells. Every date with Daniel where I felt seen and valued. Every single day I built something better from the wreckage. That was my revenge. Not the legal victory, though that had been satisfying. Not his financial ruin, though that had been karmic. My revenge was living well. Was proving that the woman he'd tried to discard was worth more than he'd ever understood. Was walking away from the wreckage and building something beautiful from the broken pieces. And I never looked back. If this story of cold-blooded revenge had you hooked from start to finish, smash that like button right now. My favorite part was when Chloe stood up and walked to the door, showing Carter she'd literally risen above everything he said. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more jaw-dropping revenge stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another upload.